Conservative activist Charlie Kirk was shot dead as he was speaking before a crowd of thousands at an event held at Utah Valley College last Wednesday. The 31-year-old co-founder of conservative advocacy group Turning Point USA was struck in the neck by a bullet fired from a nearby rooftop, captured on multiple videos that instantly went viral. President Donald Trump called it an assassination and vowed to find those who helped the shooter or shooters. Beyond who fired the fatal bullets, many, many questions are swirling. Hello, I'm Aisha Bagchi, and this is USA Today's The Excerpt. Today is Sunday, September 14th, 2025. The assassination of Kirk marks an inflection point in the history of violence in America. Kirk's death follows other incidents of political violence. Minnesota state lawmaker Melissa Hortman and her husband Mark, who were shot and killed in June. Pennsylvania Governor Josh Shapiro's house set on fire in April. 2 assassination attempts on then Republican presidential candidate Donald Trump last summer. Is political violence our new normal? For more on this disturbing trend, I'm now joined by my colleague, USA Today national reporter Will Carless, who is in Utah to cover the Kirk assassination. Will, I want to start by asking you about the recent string of political violence that has shaken politicians across the country, with many political pundits sounding alarm bells. You're an expert in extremism. What's your bird's eye view here?
I mean, there's no doubt that statistically we've seen a significant uptick in politically motivated violence, or at the very least, violence motivated against political figures. And those are two distinct things. There's a big difference between someone who goes out and, for example, commits a school shooting in the name of white supremacy or anarchism or whatever their beliefs are, and somebody who may not have particularly political motives, but goes and attacks somebody who is a political figure. But if we look at just purely the amount of violence, where there's a relationship to politics, I was talking to an expert yesterday who said it's at least doubled in the first 6 months of this year compared to the first 6 months of last year.
I know you're joining us from the ground in Utah. Do we have any inkling yet as to the motivations of the shooter?
Only insofar as the target. I mean, when you consider who the target is, Charlie Kirk, an absolute upcoming star of the of conservative politics. I mean, the founder of Turning Point USA, largely considered to be sort of being groomed for future political role, possibly even an heir apparent to Donald Trump. I mean, this is a very, very big figure on the far right. So the mere fact that he was the target, I think, does give us some clues. But of course, we won't know anything about the motives until we know who the shooter is and we have a chance to go take a look at them and see if they left behind any writings. Of course, in this case, they're still alive, so they could get up in front of a courtroom or even do interviews and tell us what motivated them.
As you mentioned, Kirk was a well-known conservative leader. He had many friends in this White House, including the president and his son, Don Jr. There seems to be some finger pointing going on by both conservatives and liberals. How did the president weigh in on this Wednesday night?
Well, to be fair, I've been on the ground covering this, but I have seen the reports and read the stories. My understanding is that the president sort of started with a certain amount of pain and sorrow, and quite quickly moved on to anger at what he calls the far left. He is immediately jumping to the conclusion that this was sort of some sort of far leftist activist, which it may have been, but which certainly we don't know yet, and perhaps the FBI knows that, but they haven't told us that yet. So he's immediately placing blame for this on radical leftist politics, and with the information that is made public, we just can't say that at this point.
Kirk's assassination is also sending shockwaves through Capitol Hill, a place that is no stranger to political acrimony. Just after Kirk was killed on Wednesday, a moment of silence devolved into a shouting match on the floor of the House of Representatives. It occurs to me that this might be a prime opportunity for this very partisan Congress to show unity. What have your colleagues who cover the Hill shared on this point?
So again, with the caveat that I've been out reporting, and not in Capitol Hill. My understanding is that there have been a couple of false alarms, luckily, that there is high tension there. But look, Capitol Hill is emblematic of the rest of the political universe in America. Where there are political events, where there are speakers, events like the one yesterday, there is going to be tension. There is going to be fear. I was talking yesterday with Bill Braniff, who used to head up counterterrorism, domestic counterterrorism prevention for the Department of Homeland Security. And what he said he's worried about is some sort of tit for tat violence, where you see leftist attackers attacking right-wing politicians, right-wing attackers attacking left-wing politicians, and you enter what he described as a death spiral of violence. So this is a country that's on edge right now. It's a political system that's on edge, and Capitol Hill is as emblematic of that as possible.
This is the $64,000 question. Are we at a new normal with regards to politically motivated violence? Has our descent into increasingly uncivil discourse and political partisanship brought us to the point where we are today?
I mean, look, I'm not a political analyst, but I am an extremism reporter who's been covering extremism for 10 years, and I've never seen it like this, with the marked exception of perhaps around 2016, 2017, when Donald Trump first came into office, when you saw a lot of violence between anti-fascists on one side and the alt-right on the other side. You had things like Charlottesville, you had running street battles in places like Berkeley, California. But look, that was a different thing. That was street level violence. That was sort of thugs on each side attacking each other. What we're seeing here is targeted assassination attempts. And I don't think it's, as I said earlier, I mean, if you look, you just have to look at the statistics. We've had twice as many so far this year as we had in the same time last year. So I think certainly we're in a new era of awareness, a new era of extra security, and a new era of concern. Whether this becomes the new normal, I think we're just going to have to wait and see.
Let's talk historically, because this isn't the first time America has seen a surge of violence. The civil rights movement was a period that also saw a surge in political violence. Are we in a similar moment where there's just no way to quell the anger and frustration that different political groups are experiencing?
Again, it's very hard to say. I mean, we don't know whether this assassination will result in some sort of peace accord, in some sort of feeling of goodwill, and feeling that there needs to be a discussion, that there needs to be some sort of harmony in amongst the discord. Or we don't know whether it's going to tip things over and make things a lot worse. If you were to judge things solely by social media and take a look at what, for example, the far right is saying and the far left is saying, the far left is showing no remorse whatsoever for this killing, and in fact sort of celebrating it, to be frank. The far right is showing a lot of anger and a lot of calls for retaliation and for revenge. If we're to use that as a barometer of what's to come, I worry we're in course for a whole lot of trouble in this country.
What are your academic or think tank sources saying about political violence in this moment? Did they see this coming?
Yes, they absolutely saw it coming. I mean, when you see there was a great quote yesterday in my interview with Mr. Braniff, where he said, look, he said something on the lines of, look, if you take away the resources to combat domestic terrorism, if you take away the very people and the analysts at the FBI, everyone from the analysts at the FBI to the very important counterterrorism work that was going on at the Department of Homeland Security until recently, when it was dismantled wholeheartedly by the administration of Donald Trump, and you combine that with a concurrent escalation in in violent political rhetoric, this is what happens. I mean, there is a clear, you mentioned history, there is a clear track record for this, and that's what we've seen play out here. If you turn up the heat on the stove and you also take away the people who are supposed to be watching the stove and making sure it doesn't boil over, your water's going to boil over. That's just common sense.
This is a tense and sensitive moment, as you well know. Are you seeing any attempts by leaders to calm the situation?
Somewhat. I think we've seen attempts on both sides to call for calm and to call for discourse and to call for harmony. Unfortunately, how do I put this? I think at this point, both the far left and the far right in this country are sort of political entities of their own. They don't really have leaders. They don't really look to the leadership on Capitol Hill. The people who are going out and attacking people from the far right aren't listening to even Donald Trump. The people who are going out and attacking people on the far left, including possibly this latest attack, certainly aren't listening to Democratic leaders. They feel like they've been failed by them. So I think, frankly, the politicians can call for peace and reconciliation, and perhaps that'll work for the vast majority of Americans. But for the real radicals, the real extremists that I cover, their messages may be falling on deaf ears.
Thanks so much for coming on the Excerpt, Will.
Thank you.
Thanks for watching. I'm Aisha Bagchi. I'll see you next time.